In this lesson, we will create a global control, and we'll also make sure that our lip rig is scalable. Let's get started by creating our global control. This will also, of course, act as our net control. So we'll head over to our Create panel. Let's go ahead and grab our Line tool. Let's also enable snapping, and we'll just go ahead and create a square. All right, great. Let's go ahead and close this spline. We'll right-click to exit the tool. I'll also disable snapping. And now let's go ahead and quick align this over to the neck. So we'll press Shift-A and click on our neck bone. All right, great. So from here, what I'd like to do, again, just to avoid any skewing issues or anything like that with our control objects, is we can head over to our Utilities tab and go ahead and reset the X-form on the object. Then from there, we can go ahead and collapse it down using the modifier stack result. We wouldn't want that to get converted to a mesh, now would we? All right, great. So now, if you were to take a look, it's an editable spline. All right, great. We have our control in place. It'd be a good idea to go ahead and rename it. So for all of our controls, we'll have the prefix enum. That's going to be underscore neck 01. All right, let's say we go ahead and give it a layer. So I'll go ahead and create a brand new layer. I'm going to go ahead and call this controls. Great. I'll make sure the default layer is still active. I also like to color code the control objects just for clarity. So in the center, we can stick with, let's say, a color of yellow. You can choose anything you'd like, but let's make sure that it's clear to discern between each part of our rig. So for example, when we create our brow controls, it'd be a good idea to change the color scheme of the objects on either side so it's clear for animators. Now if you'd like, you can head over to your rendering rollout and enable thickness in your viewport. It does make the control look a little bit more interesting, doesn't it? But it also helps to kind of select the control as well. All right, so we have our control object in place. If we were to Alt-right click and choose Transform to 0, you can see that it has not been frozen yet. Let's make sure we do that for our controls, again, so we can quickly get back to our skin pose. All right, so now that we have the global control in place, all we need to do here is go ahead and take our neck bone and have that linked to the global control. And then we'll go ahead and freeze its transforms. All right, wonderful. So now when we grab the control object, let's go ahead and select it and grab the scale tool, we should be able to resize the rig, right? Well, everything gets resized except for the lips. So how do we take care of this? All we need to do is make sure that the objects that we have used the attachment constraint on will be tied into the scaling of our global control. This is actually really straightforward. Let's go ahead and bring back the hidden layer. I'm also going to hide the mesh. All right, sweet. I'll now go into wireframe mode. And what we'll do is go ahead and use wire parameters to wire the scale of our global control into each of our helpers. And that's basically the last task. Now, keep in mind, we do not want to tie down the scale of our envelope objects because later we'll want control over each of those. So we want to be able to say, hey, I would like to go in and scale the lips, maybe to kind of add a stylized effect. Perhaps not for this character, but for a more stylized character, you might want control like that. So what we want to do is go ahead and tie down, again, the helper that's tied to our plane, which is PT-CNS. So again, I'll go ahead and hide the mesh and go back to wireframe mode. We'll go ahead and grab our global control. We'll right-click and choose Wire Parameters. That's going to be Transform, Scale. And let's go ahead and tie that to the cross helper, not the box helper. We'll go ahead and click, Transform, Scale. And now it's just a matter of doing a direct connection. So watch. If we were to bring back our mesh and start scaling down our global control, you'll notice that that helper is going to scale just fine, whereas the others, well, they need to be taken care of course. But so that's how it basically works. We just want to make sure that we go ahead and tie down the scale of each of those PT-CNS helpers, and that's going to finish out this lesson. All right, so in the next lesson, what we'll do is go ahead and work on a fleshy eye rig.